Amina gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles pale against the cracked leather. The Nevada desert stretched endlessly round her, a sea of sand and scrub under a sky turning bruise-purple with dusk. Highway 50, the so-called loneliest road in America, lived up to its name. No cars, no lights. Just the hum of her old sedan's engine and the occasional tumbleweed rolling across the asphalt. Her phone had lost signal hours ago, and the gas needle hovered dangerously close to empty. She'd been driving all day, trying to reach Reno for a job interview, but a wrong turn had led her deep into nowhere. The dashboard clock blinked 7:43 p.m. when she spotted it, a flickering neon sign. In the distance, buzzing like a dying insect, Starlight Motel, vacancy. The letters flickered red, casting an eerie glow over the cracked parking lot. The motel itself looked like it hadn't been touched since the 1970s, a low, L-shaped building with peeling paint and windows like dark, empty eyes. Amina hesitated. She didn't have enough gas to keep going, and the next town could be 50 miles away. With a sigh, she pulled into the lot, gravel crunching under her tires. The office door creaked as she pushed it open. A bell jingled, sharp and startling in the silence. Behind the counter stood a man, tall, gaunt, with skin like old parchment, and eyes sunk deep into his skull. His name tag read Earl. He didn't look up from the ledger he was scribbling in, but his lips curled into a half-smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Room for one," he rasped, voice like sandpaper. "Yeah," Amina said, shifting uncomfortably. "Just for the night." Earl slid a rusty key across the counter. "Room 13. One rule, don't open the curtains." His eyes flicked up, locking onto hers for a moment too long. Amina forced a nod, her stomach twisting. She grabbed the key and hurried out, the bell jangling behind her. Room 13 was at the far end of the motel, its door warped and paint flaking. The air inside smelled of mildew and something sharp, like rust or old blood. The room was a time capsule, faded floral wallpaper, a sagging bed with a lumpy mattress, a chipped nightstand with a rotary phone, and a single window covered by thick, dusty curtains. Amina dropped her bag on the bed, the springs groaning. Earl's warning echoed in her head, but she shook it off. Probably just a creepy old guy trying to mess with her. She locked the door, checked it twice, and lay down, hoping for a few hours of sleep before hitting the road again. But sleep didn't come. The desert was too quiet, no wind, no crickets, just a heavy, oppressive silence that pressed against her ears. Around midnight, a sound broke through, a faint scratching at the window, like nails dragging across glass. Amina sat up, heart pounding. The scratching grew louder, faster, then stopped. She held her breath, staring at the curtains. They were still, but the air felt heavier, like something was waiting. Amina's phone, useless for calls, still had a flashlight. She flicked it on, her hand trembling as she aimed the beam at the curtains. The light caught the faded fabric, revealing faint shadows moving behind it, tall, thin shapes that bent in ways no human body should. Her breath caught in her throat. The shadows paused, as if they knew she was watching. Then, a single tap on the glass, slow, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. She stumbled back, knocking over the bedside lamp. It crashed to the floor, plunging the room into darkness except for her phone's shaky light. The tapping turned into pounding, the window rattling in its frame. A low, guttural hum started, like a voice trying to speak but choking on the words. "Open, see us," it whispered, the sound slithering through the glass. Amina froze, her pulse hammering in her ears. The curtains swayed slightly, as if tugged by invisible hands. She wanted to scream, but her throat was dry. The pounding stopped as suddenly as it began, leaving only that suffocating silence. She didn't move, didn't breathe, waiting for the next sound. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time felt warped, like the room itself was holding its breath. Just before dawn, a faint glow seeped through the curtain's edges, and the air lightened, as if whatever was outside had retreated. Amina grabbed her bag, her handsazen, and bolted for her car. The key to room 13 felt heavy in her pocket as she sped out of the parking lot, the neon sign flickering behind her. She didn't look in the rearview mirror, afraid of what she might see, but as she drove, A chill settled in her bones. The shadows she'd seen hadn't been outside the window, they'd been inside, reflected in the glass. She shook off the thought, blaming exhaustion. The road stretched ahead, empty and endless. But in the quiet of her car, she swore she heard a faint hum, low and guttural. Coming from the back seat, she didn't turn around. Amina made it to Reno. But the interview was a blur. Her mind kept replaying the motel, the scratching, the shadows. She told herself it was just a sleepless night playing tricks on her. She got the job, a low-paying office gig, but a start and found a cheap apartment. Life moved on. Yet, every night, she double-checked her curtains, making sure they were tightly closed. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed her from the Starlight Motel. Weeks later, her car broke down again. The mechanic said it was sabotage wires cut clean, like someone had taken a knife to them. Amina laughed it off. Nervously, who would do that? But at night, alone in her apartment, she heard it again, that faint scratching. Now at her bedroom window, she kept the curtains closed. But the sound was unmistakable, slow and deliberate, like a message. She bought heavier drapes, but the scratching followed her to every new place she moved. She started researching the Starlight Motel. Online forums mentioned it in hushed tones, urban legends about a place in the Nevada desert where guests vanished or left changed. One post from an anonymous trucker described Room 13, heard voices at night, saw things moving behind the curtains, didn't open them, never will. Amina's stomach churned. She wasn't alone. Desperate for answers, she drove back to the motel 6 months later. The neon sign still buzzed, the parking lot still empty. Earl was there, unchanged, his hollow eyes glinting as he handed her the same rusty key to Room 13. "You know the rule," he said, his half-smile sharper this time. Amina nodded, her throat tight. She didn't want to be here, but she needed to know what was behind the curtains. That night, the scratching started earlier, louder, joined by that guttural hum. The air grew thick, pressing against her chest. Shadows danced behind the curtains, their shapes more distinct, long limbs, twisted necks, moving like puppets with cut strings. Amina clutched her flashlight, her only weapon, and whispered to herself, "Don't open the curtains. Don't." Amina spent the next day in a nearby diner, scouring the internet for more about the Starlight Motel. Old newspaper archives mentioned disappearances along Highway 50, travelers who checked in and never checked out. A 1980s article described a cult that once operated in the area, performing rituals in the desert under starless skies. They believed in summoning watchers from beyond, entities that could only enter through a threshold like a window. Amina's hands shook as she read. The curtains were the barrier. She found a blog by a woman named Clara, who'd stayed in Room 13 a decade ago. Clara wrote about the same scratching, the same voices, but she'd peeked behind the curtains. "They're not human," her post read. "They're waiting for you to look. Don't." Clara's blog ended abruptly after that post. Amina tried to contact her, but the email bounced back. A reverse image search of Clara's profile picture led to a missing persons report from 2013. Back at the motel that night, the sounds were relentless. The scratching was now a clawing, like something desperate to get in or out. The hum formed words, fragmented and wrong. "Look." "No." Amina's flashlight caught reflections in the room. Cracked mirror shapes that weren't hers, standing just behind her shoulder. She spun around, but no one was there. The curtains fluttered, though the window was sealed shut. She called the front desk, her voice shaking. "Earl, what's out there?" His reply was calm, almost amused. "You know the rule, miss. Keep them closed, and they stay out." The line went dead. Amina couldn't take it anymore. She needed answers. She stormed to the office, banging on the counter until Earl appeared, his half-smile infuriatingly calm. "What's behind the curtains?" she demanded. "What's in Room 13? Earl leaned closer, his breath sour. "They're watchers. Been here longer than the motel, longer than the desert. They need you to see them. That's how they get in." His eyes glinted, like he was part of it. "You didn't look. So you're safe, for now. Who are you?" Amina pressed, her voice cracking. "Just the keeper," he said. "Someone's gotta warn folks. Most don't listen." Amina drove to the county library the next day, digging through dusty records. The motel was built on an old ritual site, a place where the cult had torn veils between worlds. The watchers weren't ghosts or demons, they were something older, hungrier, waiting for a glance to anchor themselves here. The curtains were a seal, a fragile barrier between this world and theirs. That night, the motel felt different. The air was electric, the scratching now a rhythmic clawing, like a heartbeat. The voices were clearer. See us, free us. Amina's flashlight died, plunging her into darkness. The curtains bulged inward, as if something pressed against them from the other side. She backed against the wall, heart pounding, chanting, "I won't look. I won't look." Amina didn't sleep. At dawn, she fled the motel, tires screeching as she tore down Highway 50. The hum followed her, faint but persistent, like a radio signal she couldn't tune out. In her new apartment, the scratching resumed, now at every window. She hung blackout curtains, taped them to the walls, but the sounds found her. At night, she dreamed of Room 13, of shadows with too many limbs reaching for her. She tracked down a retired sheriff who'd patrolled Highway 50 in the 90s, over coffee. He told her about the motel. Folks who stayed there came back wrong. He said, some opened the curtains, never saw him again. He'd never stayed there himself but knew Earl. He's been there since I was a kid. Never ages, never leaves. Amina started carrying a pocket knife, checking her car daily for sabotage. She found more cut wires, more strange marks in the dust around her apartment. The watchers were patient, relentless. They didn't need her to open the curtains any more. They'd seen her first. Call, one look, we're yours. She stood, knife in hand, and faced the window. She could end it. One peek, and she'd know what they were. But the journal had warned. Seeing them gave them form. Let them cross over, Amina thought of Clara, of the missing travelers, of Earl's endless vigil. Was he protecting people, or trapping them? Was she already theirs? Her hand hovered near the curtain. The hum was a pulse, matching her heartbeat. She moved again, this time to a windowless basement apartment. The scratching stopped, but the hum was in her head now, a constant drone. She stopped sleeping, stopped eating, her reflection in mirrors, showing shadows that weren't hers. A year after her first stay, Amina was unraveling. The hum was louder, the shadows bolder, appearing in doorways, in corners, always just out of sight. She quit her job, too paranoid to leave her apartment. She covered every reflective surface, mirrors, screens, even spoons, because they were there, watching. She found an old book in a thrift store, a journal from a cult member who'd fled the Starlight Motel in 1978. It described the watchers as starless ones, entities that fed on attention, growing stronger with every glance. Amina returned to the motel one last time. She needed to end it. Earl was there, same key, same smile. "You're back," he said, like he'd been expecting her. Room 13 was unchanged, the curtains heavier, as if weighted by something on the other side. The scratching started before. She even closed the door. That she sat on the bed, a flashlight in one hand, her knife in the other. The voices were a chorus now, overlapping, desperate. "Look at us, know us, free us." The curtains rippled, shapes pressing against them, their outlines clear, claws, eyes, mouths that weren't mouths. Amina's hands shook. She wanted to know, wanted to see. But Earl's warning, the journal, Clara's disappearance, they all screamed no. Dawn was hours away. The air in Room 13 was thick, suffocating, like breathing through wet cloth. The curtains bulged, the scratching now a deafening roar. Amina's flashlight flickered, casting wild shadows that moved on their own. The voices were inside her, shadows pressed closer, their shapes almost recognizable, almost human, but not. Amina's knife gleamed in the dim light. She could cut the curtains, face the watchers, or walk away and live with the hum forever. She made her choice. The motel went silent. The neon sign flickered out. Highway 50 stretched on empty, as the desert swallowed the Starlight Motel's secrets once more.